If the MISC Expanse had launched even just a couple years ago, it'd be in the same position as the Reclaimer. Broken. But that's not because of the ship. The small-scale ore and fuel refining ship hits a nice industrial feel and will be an economic powerhouse for those who have it. The problem is refining gameplay. Currently, it's just a time sink, just something to do, an alpha implementation adding some variability to mining, but it's not intuitive and it takes way too long. It's just not the crafting prerequisite we're supposed to be using to raise the levels of commodity quality levels so that we can get higher level upgrades for our ships and armor and weapons. I'm here to talk about that refining and why it, hopefully along with the MISC Expanse, need to happen in 2026. Thank you for coming to my Tomato Talk. The player economy in Star Citizen is based around one key mechanic in the game: crafting. This economy consists of a loop that remains partially built. After a good is crafted, it needs to be destroyed or exchanged in some way, sometimes with the raw materials or value of that thing entering the market again at some future point. But the loop doesn't start there. First, an explorer needs to find the high-quality materials somewhere out there in space, or on a planet or a moon. Then a miner or salvager needs to get there and extract them safely. A cargo hauler is probably needed to ship them away before somebody can then create something out of those materials, combining them with other goods. But nobody's crafting with raw ores. All of these steps are existing in the game minus crafting, but we still need a refinement process to improve the materials and create the best possible ingots so that they can actually be used to make items. This process was laid out by one of the lead gameplay devs, Torsten Lehmann, back in 2023.
We really want to close out the loop, right? So you start at mining, you pick up the resources, may it be mining, may it be salvage, then you bring it to your refinery, you refine it to the processed goods, and once you have it in the processed goods, you bring it to your crafting facility, crafting ship, crafting whatever, and then you create the requested items out of them, and then you can even circle back to recycling the goods that you created and bring them back into the loop.
Refining right now is just like so many other tools in the game, built for a time when the main focus was to keep features coming in so the main priorities could be built while players tested out the held together persistent universe. This was more of an addition to mining than a profession of its own, limited to creating time gates of anywhere from 30 minutes to well beyond 30 hours. This station-based refining gameplay is limited to a single deck in specific places. It gives you the choice of a handful of refining methods that really don't mean much other than your yield, time, and cost. And it sends you on your merry way to count down in real time. Yes, the value of your goods goes up as the yield goes down, and this is a functional refining method, but it's not gameplay, and it's not built to work with the players. It's just something to do. And this isn't getting into the problem of ownership. Turning some minerals into a refinery for friend A, only to have friend B pick them up and sell them for friend A, is not as simple as it sounds. And if there's supposed to be any sort of system that allows players to craft and sell goods in the game, either we're gonna have to be able to give them to our friends reliably, or it's gonna get redundant pretty quickly. And if refining is still tied to the old archaic ownership system we're still using, and an inability to have your friends manage your raw ore for you, it is likely also going to become redundant pretty quickly, and will probably drag crafting down with it. From ownership to insurance to the inventory to mining, the whole system surrounding crafting is looking more and more complex all the time, which is why it'll be very important for the first implementation to set expectations. But that complexity shows why we haven't seen any refining ships in the game yet. They would have probably been completely invalidated by however refining will actually work when it comes in. Just look at how the Galaxy was treating once base building was figured out, or how the Apollo has been treated once drones weren't needed for medical gameplay. And don't even get me started on the Mercury Star Runner, we'll see what happens to that ship. All that being said, refining ships were being worked on a few years ago, according to this monthly report, so it has been on their mind, but they've clearly held off for very particular reasons. And that was probably a good call. While I don't think it's a guarantee refining comes along with crafting in the same patch this year, because there is a lot that needs to come along with crafting overall, I do think it's going to follow shortly after, and I hope it does land this year. Here's how that beautiful small refinery ship, the MISC Expanse, could fit into that. Refining going forward is all about the creation process. The most important thing to know about it, in fact, is that it will not be limited to just ore as it is now. Everything from rocks to fruit to the oil from a flower are going to be able to be refined in some way to improve their quality and prepare them for crafting other goods. Dan Truffin described this back in 2023.
Pretty much all of these industrial professions are going to feed into some form of refining / crafting. That's kind of the pinnacle of everything, whether you do it from mining, whether you do it from salvaging, or any other system that's going to be coming down the line, whatever, picking lovely flowers because they have some oil that you can extract from them and use that to lubricate your machine guns or whatever.
Now take into account the main focus of this new form of refining. Adjusting resource quality, how that resource quality affects the rocks you're mining, the refining you do, and the skill at crafting, they all explode in theory and possibilities. It doesn't come down to just having the best ship. You need to upgrade and build new components for the ship, or for your guns, your armor, your items, your vehicles, even the bases you build. And it's not about how you craft that stuff. It's about who can find the best rocks that have the best quality, that practice the best refining methods. It can lead to a lot of depth, and hopefully it's not all redundant from the stats that we do see on these weapons, items, and ships. Now, so far, we've seen all kinds of numbers depicting quality ranges from as low as the 200s up to 1000 in concept art and in game. So this quality idea could be problematic when trying to organize your different commodities if we stick to 1000 different commodity levels, so we're going to see how that's done. But the goal of refining is about to shift from making money to making better material. Mining is about to focus on more than just the highest paying goods, and players are hopefully about to care about more than just profit margins. But first we got to get out of space stations. Now there are more parts to refining than just pressing a button and waiting. It is a whole profession. Similar to how mining and engineering are being expanded, refining is going to include components outside of just your multi-tool or laser of choice. This means you can't be limited to space stations. From the furnace to the catalysts or the solvents to break down the goods, the temperature control you need to pay attention to. Ultimately, breaking away from station-based refining isn't just leaving behind a useless hallway filled with fire and grit, it's also allowing players to customize the refining process to fit their needs and use cases. The yield, location, methods, customers, and of course the quality of what it is that you're actually working with. Torsten explains this in a more theory-crafty way back in 2021.
You have to pay attention to all the tidbits of the refining process. On the refining ship, you have the reactor that could have a various amount of methods. There could be a furnace, there could be electrolyte system that could grow or help grow or separate crystals. Like you could add in some solvents like acids that would help you, and the entire reactor is built around that. So you could basically, in the end, our goal is to have you, as the owner of the refining ship, tailor your the refining process to your demands.
Taking the crutch of a system space stations were offering to make mining more complex and turning it into a living part of the game that makes money and empowers other game loops is the kind of gameplay-focused move players have been begging for years. But I think many are still waiting for CIG to prove that they can actually make these kinds of things fun, and that the needed ships make sense. Which is why launching the Expanse before refining was even realized, would have been a disaster. Let's talk about what we're going to get from that ship when it does arrive. The Expanse is actually much smaller than it looks in pictures. It's what was considered the starter refinery ship when it was revealed. Now we've seen how small they can get with industrial starting ships looking at the Golem, but a refinery does need quite a bit of space, so I think this may be as small as they get. Coming in at 35 by 21 meters, it's a ship made for one, with 64 SCU of storage for ore stored in 8 bags. This ship also carries 8 more collapsed bags above those for additional quick storage, but this may all change by the release. It'll also come with 6 reactors, which are necessary for the refining process, a tractor beam for moving goods around, and 2 size 1 laser guns. God knows why. And while I do say this is a starting ship for the profession, the first ship unveiled for the profession and the perfect candidate to be added this year, this video is less about the Expanse and more about what it represents. Because you have other options for refining. The Arcsai Galaxy is releasing this year and should have its own refining module if they decide to do it at the same time. Not as performant, but still adequate. The Reclaimer also will have its own internal refinery in the long term. The mining and exploration vessel, the MISC Odyssey, will also have a refinery, as well as the legendary RSI Orion and its smaller sibling, the RSI Arastra. A lot of these larger mining ships are going to have refineries as well. So a lot of choices. And on top of all of this, what's most likely to happen this year is that CIG introduces a completely new straight-to-flyable ship for refining, leaving Expanse owners wondering when they're going to get their goods. We do know from recent discussion that a MISC ship is scheduled to release this year, but the Hull B is also on the lineup, and more likely, to be honest, so the Expanse is not a guarantee. I really don't know if this ship is coming out this year, but in my opinion, refining itself needs to. It breaks gameplay away from Space Station, it leads players into crafting, it completes the economic loop, and it allows players to have more impact on the actual game and other players' processes. It's going to be the 5th industrial profession introduced to Star Citizen after mining, hauling, salvaging, and engineering, and it's gonna need to impress. I hope we see the Expanse in Star Citizen this year, and I'm glad we didn't see it any earlier. But at the end of the day, it's not about the ship this time, it's about the gameplay. I hope you enjoyed this look into the year ahead. I've already covered the various features and locations we may be seeing in my previous video. Definitely check that out below. But this one was special. Refining is such a sleeper, in my opinion, because crafting takes all the attention. But this part of the economic loop is not going to be a small one. Not as glamorous or celebrated, but I think there's going to be good money and interesting group dynamics around refining and how it fits in. I also think that refiners are going to be valuable when it comes to players who are willing to work together with other players. If you want to see other gameplay covered on this channel, I try to help explain the development of Star Citizen every week right here, and every day over on my second channel. So if you'd like to hear more about Star Citizen, tune in and consider subscribing here. Or maybe you just want to hear more about me, in which case, hello. Thanks again for watching this video until the end. I hope you learned something new in it, and I'll catch you in the next.